Dad kicked me out of family dinner and said, "You're selfish. Your sister is better than you." I laughed out loud and said, "Great. Then I'm not paying her rent." Mom's 51st birthday should have been about her, but in our family, things never go the way they should. We all got together at my parents' house. Me, my sister Amanda, Dad, some cousins, uncles, and aunts. Mom was happy at first, enjoying the attention. The food was good, the drinks were flowing, and for a while, everything was fine. Just another family dinner. Then, as usual, the conversation turned to Amanda. Dad was the one to start. He began talking about how well she was doing in college, how hard she worked, how much potential she had. He went on and on, as always, talking about how proud he was. Amanda gloated, nodding as if she wasn't used to hearing that same speech at every family gathering. The rest of us just sat there. What could we say? Then Dad turned to me. "You're helping your sister enough." It caught me by surprise. I didn't even know what he was referring to. Before I could respond, he turned to Amanda. "Do you need help?" Amanda hesitated for a moment. Yes, but she wanted to ask Dad for something. Her eyes sparkled. "Oh yeah, what is it?" She looked at me. "I was thinking about buying a car. It would make things easier for me with college and work." Now I understood what she was getting at. Dad didn't even pause before looking directly at me. "So you're going to help your sister?" I stared at him. "Are you serious? If she needs a car, why don't you buy it for her?" The atmosphere changed immediately. Dad put down his fork and leaned forward. "Really? You can't do that for your sister." I shook my head, trying to stay calm. "I've already helped her enough. If she wants a car, it's her business." That was all it took. Then he exploded. He started ranting, raising his voice with each sentence about how Amanda had potential but wouldn't get anywhere without support, about how he was tired of spending half of his income on her needs, about how he had to make sure she had it all because she was the golden child and he couldn't give her much. Then he looked directly at me and said, "She's better than you. She's going to go far." I laughed. I couldn't help it. "Well then, you start paying for her things." Dad turned red. He stood up so fast the chair scraped the floor. Mom gasped. Some of my cousins shifted uncomfortably. Amanda froze. Dad pointed to the door. "If you want to be selfish, you don't have to be here. Don't come back." I stood up, still laughing. "Okay, you think she's better than me? Then you pay the rent." Dad didn't hesitate. "I'll do it." I shook my head, turned around, and walked out. "Happy birthday, Mom." I went up to my room. I could still hear them talking downstairs, but I didn't care enough to listen. I knew how it was going to be. Mom would try to calm him down. The others would act like nothing happened. Amanda wouldn't say anything. The next morning, the phone rang. It was Amanda. I answered. Before I could say anything, she attacked me, complaining, telling me I was being ridiculous, saying she hoped it was a joke. She went on like that for 7 minutes. I didn't say a word. Then I hung up. A few minutes later, Mom knocked on my door. She stood there with her arms crossed, looking exhausted. She didn't come in right away. She stood like she was thinking about what to do. I didn't help her. I just sat on the bed, staring at the phone, waiting for her to say something. She sighed. "Jeremy, you have to fix this." I didn't even look up. "Fix what?" She came in now, her voice softer. "Your dad was mad. He didn't mean what he said." I giggled. Yes, he did. He meant it. Mom sat on the edge of my desk chair. "You know how he is. He gets carried away." Finally, I looked at her. "Mom, he told me to leave and not come back. And you want me to pretend it was just a bad mood?" She rubbed her temples. "I don't want this to get worse." "It's already gotten worse," I said. "And you know what? Okay, I'll make it easy for him." She gave me a tired look. "Jeremy, don't do anything you'll regret." I didn't answer. After a few seconds, she sighed and left. I continued with my day without giving it another thought. If Dad wanted me to do well, fine. If Amanda wanted to cry because I didn't give her money, it was her problem. But that night, I received a text from Amanda. "Amanda, you took money out of the account." I smiled. "It's my money. I've decided to stop sharing it. Less than a minute later, my phone rang. Amanda. I sent it to voicemail. A few seconds later, another text. Amanda, Jeremy, I needed that. What's wrong with you? I didn't answer. The thing is, a while ago, Dad convinced me to open a joint account with Amanda. He said that way, it would be easier for me to help her with rent and college expenses. At first, it was just for essentials. But over time, she started using it for everything: rent, food, clothes, Uber rides, even random Amazon orders. And I let it slide. Until now. I transferred every last cent and closed the account. The next morning, my phone started vibrating nonstop, calls from Dad, calls from Amanda. I ignored them all. Then a text came. Amanda, I haven't been able to pay my rent. What do you want me to do? I stared at the text for a second before answering. Me, ask Dad. He said he would take care of it. Then I turned off my phone. He would figure it out. The next morning, I woke up to more missed calls. Dad, Amanda, even Mom. I didn't bother to listen to the voicemails. I already knew what they were. I turned my phone on at noon, and a few minutes later, another message appeared. Amanda, you're amazing. Dad says he's not going to pay my rent. You got me into this mess. I laughed. I got you into this mess? Her response was quick. Amanda, you know I was counting on that money. I'm broke. Are you going to let me? I stared at the message for a moment. It was impressive how she turned the tables, as if I were the bad guy for not wanting to keep paying for her. I replied, I think it's your problem. Good luck. Then I silenced her notifications. I thought that was the end of it. For now. I was wrong. Around 4 in the afternoon, I heard the front door open. A second later, Mom called me. Jeremy, your father is here. I sighed. Of course. I went down, and sure enough, Dad was there in the living room with his arms crossed and an angry face. Mom stood to the side, nervous. She didn't waste time. I leaned against the wall. Fix what? You know what? Her voice was tense, and anger barely contained. Amanda's rent is due today. You're not going to leave your sister on the street. I bowed my head. You didn't say you would pay it. Her face shook. I thought she would have reconsidered before it came to this. Well, no. For a second, I thought he was going to lose his temper again, but then his expression changed. Instead of exploding, he suddenly seemed cocky. I didn't like it. Well, he said with too much calm, if you want to behave like a selfish brat, I'll do it my way. I raised an eyebrow. And what does that mean? No, he answered. He turned around and left. Mom sighed. Jeremy, why are you doing this? Do what? Defend myself? She shook her head. He's just upset. But I didn't listen to her anymore. I had a bad feeling. And I was right. Because 2 days later, I found out what Dad meant by doing it his way. I got home from work and saw something weird in the driveway: Dad's old car. Or at least, what had been Dad's old car. A for sale sign was taped to the windshield. My stomach dropped. I loved that car. Not because I drove it, I hadn't driven one in years, but because it was my first car. I had bought it as a teenager with my own money. I had left it at my parents' house when I moved, but it was mine. And now he was selling it out of spite. I stormed in. Mom was in the kitchen. What is Dad doing? She looked scared. He's not home. Why? I pointed outside. He's selling my car. She gulped. Jeremy, you didn't use it. That's not the point. It's mine. She sighed. Your father thought, since you broke up, you wouldn't care. I laughed. For real. Oh, since I'm not financing Amanda's life, I can't have my stuff? She didn't answer. I walked straight out. I ripped the for sale sign off the windshield. Yeah, I called Dad. He answered after 2 rings. You changed your mind? I got straight to the point. You're selling my car? There was a pause. And then he said, with the same nonchalance as always, it's been here for years. You don't care? I squeezed the phone tighter. It's not yours to sell. You left it here. So, can I sell it? You're not part of the family anymore. Why do you care what happens to something that's in my driveway? That's when I realized how far I was willing to go. I took a deep breath. Okay, if this is how you want to play it. And I hung up. So he wanted to play? Well, because I was about to make his life a whole lot harder. I wasn't going to let him sell my car. No. The next morning, I grabbed the spare key, drove to my parents' house, and pulled into the driveway my way. Because technically, it was mine. The car was where I had left it, covered in dust, but otherwise perfect. The "for sale" sign was gone. He must have taken it down after my call. But I wasn't going to just wait for Dad to put it back up. I opened the door, sat down, and started the engine. It roared instantly. Well, I had barely stepped outside when my phone started ringing. Dad. I didn't answer. Then the text came. You just stole from me. I laughed and replied. I just took back what's mine. A minute later, the phone rang again. It was Amanda. I sighed and answered. Her voice was already at full blast. Dad is freaking out. What have you done? I pulled onto the highway. Got in my car. You stole it. I rolled my eyes. Amanda, it was never his to sell. He was trying to get money for my rent. I laughed at that. So now you admit he lied when he said he would pay for it? Silence. I shook my head. No, it's not my problem. She snorted. Why are you doing this? You know I need that money. And you knew it wasn't yours, I replied. As if she were thinking whether to say something or not at the end, she muttered, You didn't have to be so harsh. I gritted my teeth. Amanda, I've been helping you for years. And the first time I stopped doing it, suddenly I'm the bad guy. More silence. And then, with the weakest voice I'd ever heard from her, I don't know what to do. For a second, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Then I remembered that she and Dad didn't care about using me as an ATM. So fix it, I said before hanging up. When I got home, Mom was already calling me. I sent it to voicemail. Then another message from Dad came in. If you don't give the car back, don't bother coming back. I smiled. Sounds good to me. But I wasn't done yet. 'Cause if Dad wanted to play dirty, I could be worse. And the next thing I did was what set everything on fire. Dad wanted to play nice? I had one last card left. There was one thing Dad had always counted on, our joint savings account. Not mine and Amanda's. Mine and his. When I first started working as a young man, Dad talked me into opening a joint account with him. He said it was for security, in case I ever needed help with money management. I didn't give it much thought. I didn't use it much then. The truth is, I just put in the money I had left over from work. Over the years, it became a nice cushion. I never paid attention to the balance 'cause I hardly ever took money out. Until now. After all, I had a feeling I should take a look. I logged in. And what I saw made my blood run cold. The balance was low. Much lower than it should be. Thousands of dollars were missing. I checked the movements month by month. And there they were. Withdrawals. Transfers. Recurring payments for Amanda's rent. Tuition fees. Even a few withdrawals in Dad's name. For years. I sat there, staring at the screen, barely breathing. He'd been using my money. And he'd never told me. I clenched my jaw real tight. Dad, you wanted a war? I transferred every last dollar and closed the account. It didn't take long. That night, my phone was smoking with so many calls. I didn't answer the texts coming in. Dad, what the hell have you done? Mom, Jeremy, your dad is going crazy. Please talk with him. Amanda, did you just make Daddy's Easter? I ignored all of them. Then, late at night, the doorbell rang. I knew who it was before I looked. I opened the door and saw Dad standing there, red-faced and fists clenched. What did you do? I crossed my arms. I got my money back, just like I got my car back, he huffed. That account was ours. It wasn't mine, and you emptied it without telling me. He took a step towards me. That money was helping your sister. I tilted my head. That's what you said. It was better than me not knowing how to cope for the first time, Dad. No, he replied instantly. He stood there breathing heavily, then in a calmer tone, he said, Do you really want to break up this relationship? I looked him in the eyes. You broke it first. Silence. He turned around and walked away. I watched him leave, waiting for anger to overwhelm me, for guilt to overtake me. But I only felt relief. It was finally over, or so I thought. Because what happened next, that was when things got ugly. For the first time in years, I felt free. No more joint bills, no more paying for Amanda, no more dad treating me like an ATM. I thought that was it, that I had made things clear, and that they would finally leave me alone. I was sorely mistaken. Less than a week later, I received a frantic call from Mom. I barely answered, but the number of missed calls made me give in. As soon as I picked up, I heard Mom's distressed voice. "Jeremy, your father is in a mess." I frowned. "What do you mean, in a mess?" She spoke quickly, as if she was afraid I would hang up. "Oh, he took out a loan. A big one. And now the bank is after him because he hasn't paid." I sat up. "What?" Mom hesitated, then in a low voice she said, "He used your savings to pay for it." I felt a lurch in my stomach. I had assumed that Dad was only taking out money for Amanda. But a loan? And now that he had taken my money from her, he had nothing to fall back on. "How much?" I asked. Mom's voice shook. 30,000. I laughed. "Really? You're telling me that Dad has taken out a loan of 30,000 and he hasn't told me?" Mom snorted. I know. I thought I could fix it, but..." I interrupted her. "And what does that have to do with me?" She fell silent, and that told me everything. I gritted my teeth. "You want me to fix it?" "Jeremy, he's desperate. If not with..." "No, it's not my problem." But I should have known Dad wasn't the type to give up easily. Because 2 days later, I got home and saw that my things were missing. I walked into my apartment, and something didn't feel right. The living room seemed emptier. And then I saw it, my television was gone. My laptop was missing too. When I ran into my room, my watch collection, my game console, even some of my clothes were gone, as if someone had helped themselves. My heart started to pound. My mind was spinning. There were no signs of forced entry or theft. And then it dawned on me. Only 2 people had a copy of my apartment key, my mother and my father. I didn't even hesitate. I called Dad. He answered after 2 rings. "What do you want now?" "Where's my stuff?" A pause, and then, too calmly, "What are you talking about?" I clenched my jaw. "Dad." Another pause, and then, "If you're not going to help the family, I don't see why you need so many luxuries." I squeezed the phone so hard that my fingers hurt. "You've stolen from me." He didn't even deny it. "You've taken everything from Amanda. You've emptied the account. You've left us with a mess." "I've only fixed things." I was shaking with rage. "Where are my things?" He had the nerve to say, "I've pawned them." I needed the money. I was about to throw the phone against the wall. I had done this. I had let him and Amanda use me. For a second, I was speechless. Then, in the calmest voice I could manage, I said, "You just made the biggest mistake of your life." And I hung up. I thought I had burned all bridges. I had no idea what was coming. I sat on the couch, still furious, looking at my empty living room. Dad had stolen from me, and I thought he was going to get away with it. I picked up the phone and called a lawyer. Nothing out of the ordinary, just a consultation. I needed to know what I could do because if Dad thought I was going to let this go, he was sorely mistaken. The lawyer made it easy for me. I had proof that the stolen things were mine: receipts, serial numbers, even pictures. It was a crime. And since he had admitted to it over the phone, even better. "Press charges," said the lawyer. "Or threaten to do so. He will relent." So I did. I called Dad again, this time put it on speaker, and recorded the entire conversation. I spoke to a lawyer. I told him, "If you don't give me back every single thing you've pawned, I am going to report you for theft." He laughed. "Wouldn't do that." I smiled. "Yes, I would. And you know what? I recorded you when you admitted it the other time. You want to test me?" Silence. And then, in a much less confident tone than before, he muttered, "For real? You're gonna put your father in jail." I shrugged. "You're the one who robbed me." "So yeah." Another pause. And finally, he caved. "I'll get the money. You have a week." I hung up. And just like that, he finally came to his senses. 3 days later, he sent me every last penny. But I was done. My family had sucked my blood for years, and I wasn't going to let them do it again. I put my apartment up for sale. I found a new job in another state. And 2 months later, I left. I cut off all contact, no texts, no calls, nothing. And it was wonderful. It was 3 months before I heard from them. Then, all of a sudden, Mom called me. I barely answered, but curiosity got the better of me. As soon as I answered, she sighed. "Jeremy, your sister is pregnant." I blinked. "What?" Mom looked exhausted. Her fiancé left her. She's all alone. I sat back and took in the information. Amanda, the golden child. The one who was so much better than me. The one Dad had sacrificed everything for. Pregnant and abandoned. I smiled. Well, she's the best. I didn't laugh. And I hung up. Update. It's been a few months since I disappeared. Life is going great. No family dramas, no guilt, just peace. And then, out of the blue, I got an email from Amanda. Subject: "Hey, can we talk?" I laughed before opening it. Turns out, she didn't just want to chat. She wanted money. Being a single mother is hard. Who would have thought? And since Dad is broke and Mom can't do much, she thought maybe I could lend a hand. My favorite phrase: "I know we've had our differences, but we're still family." Oh, now we're family? Not even. I replied. I marked it as spam. And moved on with my life.